First, I want to tell you that I was born in the islands of Bombay, you know that. And Bombay is a very different city compared to the other cities in India, commercial city, a lot of crime. And I was the only son of my parents. I lost my mother when I was 9. I grew up with my father in his workplace team, so I was brought up with servants, and I grew up alone. I didn't have any brothers or sisters or anyone. I was always a lone child, and a lot of responsibilities fell onto me at a very young age. As I said, my place was on the beach, you know, facing the sea. It was on the beach, and a lot of foreigners and people used to come and rent out rooms in my house. We had 6 big rooms, a lot of tourists there. And I was in school at that time. This was way back in 1976, 1974 at that time. And these foreigners used to come in. I used to smoke cigarettes at that time at a very young age, and slowly went into hash. And this, since my place was open, my father was not around. My father used to come at weekends, and he would just give me money because he couldn't spend time with me and give me his love, you know. So he would compensate with cash. If I asked my father for $1,000, he would give me 2,000. You know, he was that kind. And that money also ruined me a lot, because I started exposing myself to prostitutes, to drugs, to crime, and a lot of friends that came over to my house and started using. Slowly I found that the need of drugs was so high that somebody had to get it for us all the time. So I started pushing and ended up becoming one of Bombay's biggest pusher. I was known by the press as the Prince of the Suburbs. I had a big long ponytail, and I was quite healthy because I love swimming. So living off the coast, you know, swimming was one thing that I always did, so I had a good physique. When I was pushing drugs to my friends and people, there were a lot of underworld kingpins that came around and trying to demand money from me, from my business. And I wouldn't give in to them, so I had to fight them. And after fighting them, I slowly became a kingpin in the underworld. I was recognized. I had a group of guys working for me, 7, 8 guys. Of course, in this period of time, I fell in love with 2 beautiful women, and I lived with both of them. They both loved each other. I got married to one in court and the other in church. And we lived as a family, but they couldn't take it afterwards, because being a kingpin in the underworld in Bombay means you have to be mature, be a man. You have to sleep around with, this was the kind of ego that I lived with. I slept around with any woman that came to my joint to buy drugs, took advantage of them. There was one time when I had taken an overdose, and there was this particular girl that I used to always look down upon her. And because many men had taken advantage of her, she was someone who didn't have an elder brother. And when I had taken this overdose, I was in a particular room alone at that time. I was taking short morphine. I was dying, and this girl came around and she saved my life. She took me to hospital, and I used to always call this girl, "Hey, you're an easy lay," you know. And I used to look, but when she took me to hospital and my life was saved by her, if she had not been there, I would have been dead. And I was unconscious, and when I came to consciousness in the hospital, I found that she had a small Bible placed on my chest and she was praying. And I looked up and I seen Lorna. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "I was the one who brought you to hospital." Then the nurse and the doctor explained that she had got me to hospital and saved my life. That's the time when I changed a bit. That was my first time I felt God working in my life through her, and I changed. I stopped harming women. I started fighting for them. I started closing down brothels and flesh trade centers in Bombay, because I had many boys working with me, including gambling and things, and closing down joints and things. And slowly I had many cases, about 111 cases on me for all sort of crime, whether it was narcotics or caught with arms or whatever. And there was a time when I was externed out of Bombay because of so many cases. You know, it's externment, they send you out of the city for a period of time, you're not allowed to come in. And that's the time I had lost all my friends, all my guys who worked with me, my gang boys or whatever. They were not there, I was alone, I was out in another place. And I needed money, I needed to come back to Bombay, pick up money, pick up my brown sugar or morph. And that's the time when I came back to Bombay and the police got to know that I was there. They had obtained a shoot at sight order from the court. And they were all ready to, kill me. But I had no place to run, so I ran towards the sea. And this part of the sea is full of rocks, I just ran there and the tide was going out, pulling out at that time, and I ran to the sea and a big wave kind of just pulled me out into the sea, and that's the time I heard the firing, they were firing at me. But I managed to get into the sea and was in the water. And I was drifting and then I found myself in this river, sea has currents. I was being pulled out into the sea. And I knew, because I was born on the coast, I know that this water is going to take me real deep down into the sea. I wasn't able to swim back. And I was just praying at that time. That's the first time I ever prayed, I think. And asked God, I don't want to die. I don't want to die drowning here. And I was floating for about 2.5 to 3 hours, just drifting out into really out into deep sea. And that's the time when I seen this boat coming across a small canoe, and it was very surprising because usually fishermongers use this current to go into the sea, not come against it. It's very tough to row against it. They're rowing boats. That's the time when I started shouting in Marathi, in the language that we speak. I said, "Vatso, just help, help, help." And this guy helped me, pulled me up into the boat, and he says, "Why?" And he said in Marathi, "Asa kaam kasa karte tu maraicha kaam karte." It means, why are you doing the works of death? And it didn't strike me. I was happy that I was on boat and saved. And I slept in the boat, and I went and slept on the dry nets. Time later, I heard the boat rocking and a kind of sound with the nets being pulled up. And I asked him what's happening in Marathi, and he says, "I've got a fish that they call God's fish. We call in Marathi God's fish, that is the smaller kind of dolphins which fishermongers don't kill." And he says, "I've got it in the net net which is called a trap, or the net of confusion." And he says, "I've caught that and I'm just releasing it away." So he says, "Deva samasa mi solte." I'm leaving God's fish out of the net. And I said, "But this guy is crazy because he's going to lose all the fish he has in the net." And then I came next time. I dropped off to sleep and I reached the shore, and I was on the other side of the sea, the creek. And as I was getting off the boat, he handed me 10 rupees and said, "Here, have something to eat." And I said, "This guy has lost all his fish and now he's giving me money." And he says, "No, last night I'm happy I saved a fish that got caught into God's net." And when I reached, I had relatives on the other side of the sea, and I went there and I met them and I told them what happened last night. And they all laughed because they said, "Nobody has rowing boats on this part of the sea." So I said, "Must be." And saying, "No, there's no person like this." And even I knew that there was no person like this. It was something that I felt was a miracle. And that's the time when I wanted to make changes in my life. I wanted to give up. I went into a rehabilitation center. It didn't work for me, Sarah. It didn't work there. I worked in that center for some time, but I was still continuing with my high-risk activities, still injecting and using drugs, till I fell sick and I reached Shalom. And I was dying in Shalom. Actually, I went to Shalom. I rang up one of my sponsors, asking him to send me there because I was dying. and I wanted to die in a safe place. And I was suffering a lot because I was in the AIDS stage. I had nowhere to go. And I reached Shalom, and there Dr. Nirmala and Dr. Saira, they both took me in. I had not even money to pay the auto rickshaw, and they did that too for me. They paid the auto and they looked after me. But they also had given up hope. Dr. Nirmala, when I recovered, she said, I didn't think you would make it, but I was just doing my duty. She said it was God's hand. And that is the time when there was a person, they have prayers every day in Shalom in the morning. One night I was restless and I was begging God, just take me. And He did. And I don't want to live anymore, take me away. And that morning I heard this guy praying and saying a scripture from the Bible, you must be born again. And I said, as I told you earlier, I was laughing to myself, saying, how can I be born again? I'm dying. Yes, but I said, let me try. And maybe with God I can, and with Jesus I can. And I did that. I started praying. I found myself praying, and I started asking Jesus and God, are you really there? And then the next day, I heard this passage that, see, I have carved you on the palm of my hand. See, I have carved you on the palm of my hand. And that was my answer, that I will never forget you. I'll never leave you orphan. I will never leave you alone, something that way. And just those few words that, see, I have carved you on the palm of my hand, gave me a renewed strength that I knew now I'm going to be. There was something that I felt inside of me. And day by day I was getting better. I was able to walk very slowly. Then they said, see, now you're better, you'll have to go. And I was wondering, where am I going to go? I have no place to go. Just then, that morning, a person from Asha Bhavan called Nicholas, he's not here, he's in the Guwahati house. He walked in that morning and he was there. And the same day, the boy who helped me to clear my urine pot and empty it out, he had left. He was on leave, and I was wondering who's going to help me to the toilet, who's going to clear my urinal, the pot. What am I going to do now? And Nicholas walked in, and he took great care of me. And he says, I'm a drug addict like you. And I looked at him, I think he was an angel, because that's the time I felt that God is working. And he took a lot of care of me. I was feeling hungry in those times, wanting something to eat, and he got me fruits. He started feeding me, helping me out. And he said, why don't you go to Asha Bhavan? I'm from there, why don't you come there? I said, I don't know, I heard about Asha Bhavan, but I'm not going to come there. They're going to make me work very hard. But he says, no. He says, come. And then I came here with him to Asha Bhavan. But when I reached Asha Bhavan, I couldn't walk. I was really sick. And when I reached here, and we went up on the first floor for worship and meeting, and there they sang the song Jai Jaira, my Prabhu. And then I really realized this song made a big difference in my life, because here God had put, they were not drug addicts, but all angels who took charge over me. They looked after me, helped me go to the bathroom, have a bath, clean up, shave, and not only physically helped me to grow, but also spiritually. And that's something very beautiful. I'm very encouraged by the people I've seen around here, like Yogesh, my director, Moya. They are so young and they have experienced so much of God in them, because I can feel that, and I feel very lost that I have grown older than them, but I have not experienced God. And these people are so young and they have experienced God's work in their life, and that kind of inspiration, why I've been left out, and I want to be like them. And if people want to see miracles, they can see them walking around here. We are all witnesses to God's miracles. I'm one, and I believe that I'm a miracle, because the way I lived, my lifestyle of living, being an underworld kingpin, I have not thought twice to break people's hands or legs or destroy lives. Why should I be alive? Maybe now I know God had a purpose for me, and He wanted me here to do His work. And today my prayer is, let me do your will, Lord. And that's all. I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to be the old me. And I'm glad that I'm born again and living a clean and happy life with absolutely no intoxication. And I wish that I may carry on and do God's will. That's my only prayer, that He makes me an instrument like all my leaders over here.